Would you please help me welcome Mr. Brent Gleason?
All right. Thank you, Will. Thank you for that kind introduction. How are you guys doing today? Good? You guys feeling good? How's the energy in here? Okay, people, we will do push-ups until morale improves in here. I assure you. That's better. You guys awake? Feeling good? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not getting the sleepy after lunch crowd. And if I hear one fork clink one plate, no, I'm kidding. Now, the reason I ask is because I need full engagement. We're talking about engagement and collaboration today. But more so I ask because in the early stages of SEAL training, you spend a hell of a lot of time in the classroom. But you do so on very little sleep. So the instructors would keep these large metal bathtubs full of ice water in the back of the room. You can see where I'm going with this. Guess what those were for? If you got caught nodding off, falling asleep, not paying attention, you got to sit chest deep in a bathtub full of ice water for the rest of class. Yeah, not a head dunk, Patty. Not for 1 or 2 minutes, for the rest of class. And let me tell you, it's really hard to learn anything when you're shivering your ass off, reaching hypothermic levels in a bathtub full of ice water. Now, how do I know that? Yeah. Unfortunately, I spent many days in those ice baths. Not the kind of person who learns from his mistakes the first time around. Now, in light of being fully transparent with you guys, I did, in fact, request ice baths for this event. Fortunately for you, overprotective Patty over here denied my request. So you guys are off the hook, but I'll be watching you. No, in all seriousness, thank you guys so much. It's truly an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. So when a SEAL platoon is on patrol in enemy territory or sneaking into an enemy compound, the man in front is the point man. He's taking point. He is leading his team into what we call VUCA environments. And yes, that's one of the many hundreds, if not thousands, of acronyms we have in the United States military. And it refers to the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments that we operate in. That acronym is actually now widely used across the globe, in large part in the global business community. It too, of course, referring to the more disruptive, fast-paced information age that we live in. The fast-paced, ever-changing, more transformative 21st century global business landscape. Organizations that deal with almost constant change. I think we can agree that pretty much every organization across the globe is dealing with change and disruption, more so than ever before, meaning we have to be more collaborative and adapt to those changes almost on a constant basis. Now, in a similar fashion, Navy SEALs are known to be the most elite and feared special operations fighting force in the entire world. But how do we continue to dominate our battlefield and fight and defeat a very dangerous and decentralized enemy? In large part, and we're going to talk a lot about this today, in large part it is due to our very well-defined and distinct organizational culture, a culture founded on the principles of leadership at all levels, adaptability, extremely high levels of internal and external trust and accountability woven into the fabric of that culture, resiliency, and a relentless never-quit attitude. But the secret is our organizational culture, our team culture, aligns perfectly with our strategic vision, to win. Who in here likes winning? Yeah? All right, people, I'm changing it to burpees if we don't take it up a notch in here. Who in here likes winning? All right. I'll tell you guys an interesting fact. In our history, no SEAL has ever been captured as a prisoner of war, ever. Now, why might you ask? Well, perhaps you're a bit of a historian. Maybe some of you have seen that Gerard Butler movie, 300. Anybody seen that movie? I see the ladies nodding their heads. You know that movie with the Spartan warriors with the absurdly ripped bodies, the painted on abdominal muscles? I've had to convince myself that's been digitally enhanced. It's just too damn depressing to think otherwise. Quite obviously, I'm not a 28-year-old Navy SEAL operator anymore. I'm a 41-year-old father of 3 who eats his children's leftovers. Anybody do that? Yeah. Not a great way to stay lean. Maybe you've read the book Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield. And recall the story of King Leonidas and his brave, elite, 300 Spartan warriors facing annihilation against droves and droves of hundreds of thousands of Persian army invading their lands. And during this vicious battle, an Arcadian captain that had partnered with King Leonidas in his fight against the Persians frantically consults him, basically saying, "Look, man, I don't know if you noticed this, but we are just a little bit outnumbered here. Kind of getting our asses kicked a little bit. It's time we start weighing our options." At this point, very clearly, those options are retreat or surrender. And King Leonidas immediately and passionately looks at him and says, "Well, that's an easy decision for us, Arcadian, because Spartans never retreat and Spartans never surrender." And of course, every single one of them died that day defending their freedoms. I can think of countless gunfights, many of which have resulted in the deaths of my fallen brothers. But in the instances where it became that last man standing type of situation, later teams were sent in to recover the bodies and, of course, hunt down the enemy. A common theme always occurred. The bodies of our fallen brothers would be found surrounded by their own rifle and pistol magazines. Every single rifle magazine completely empty. Every single pistol magazine empty. No grenades left in their chest harnesses, because these brave warriors, despite being mortally wounded and completely outnumbered, would keep fighting and fighting until they had nothing left to give, until they were literally down to throwing rocks. Each and every person on the team knowing and trusting that not one fellow team member would ever stop fighting, win or lose, until that fight was done. That level of trust, perseverance, resiliency, determination reminds me of a great quote, fitting for this time of year, a quote that I love by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "If you can't fly, you run. And if you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl. But no matter what, you keep moving forward." In the SEAL teams, we have an ethos, a creed that embodies our culture and our values. And a similar line from that ethos says, "I will not quit. I persevere and thrive in adversity. And if knocked down, I will get back up every time. I am never out of the fight." And that, my friends, is how we take point and what it means for us to be all in all the time. What do you guys think? That'll wake you up a little bit. Did that remind you at all of your workplace environment? maybe on Mondays when the shit's really hitting the fan. In all seriousness, by showing you that video and with a little bit of the content that I'll cover today, I do, of course, want you to know I am in no way by any means glorifying war. War is messy, it's violent, it's filled with fear and self-doubt. What I'm doing is laying the foundation for how the most elite teams in the world train to fight and fight to win. And how groups of driven individuals in any organization, any high-performance organization, can come together as a team to collaborate and achieve the seemingly impossible. And being all in all the time is one of our many, many philosophies that we have in the SEAL teams. That phrase was originally coined by one of our fallen SEAL Team 6 team leaders. And simply put, it's about persistence, determination, and giving every single thing we commit to everything we've got and nothing less. Just like King Leonidas and his brave Spartan warriors. When we think about that philosophy in the context of your own roles in your organizations, regardless of rank or title or tenure, what does that really mean? Is that even realistic? In what context can we put that? Is being all in all the time a flurry of aggressive, disorganized, misaligned behaviors in an attempt to achieve some undefined goal? Of course not. It's highly aligned, highly targeted, highly specific, and I think we would all agree that if we are all investing our time wisely in the right activities that align with the right priorities, that are in line with meeting the goals, the strategic objectives, and fulfilling the vision of our organizations, then yes, of course, it's everybody's responsibility in this room to be what? All in, say it with me, all in, all the time. We're gonna have to do better than that, people. Well, in December of 1999, I first made my decision to be all in. As it sometimes happens in a fit of youthful foolishness and indiscretion, I quit my corporate finance job and joined the United States Navy with a dream of becoming a SEAL. A decision that would, of course, forever change my life and set me on the course that I'm on today. So this afternoon, I would like to share just a little bit of that journey with you, share some stories from training, from the battlefield, so to speak. But much more importantly, we're going to talk about the philosophies of leadership at all levels, teamwork, persistence, collaboration, and how organizations and high-performance teams in any environment can leverage those SEAL principles of leadership at all levels, culture transformation and aligning culture with your strategic vision, accountability, and trust to achieve winning results. And hopefully give you guys some actionable insights and some key takeaways, and God willing, a little bit of inspiration you can apply to your own lives, both professionally and personally. So let's dive in, shall we? All right. Now, as a bit of background, I grew up in the great nation of Texas. Who are my Texans in the room? How many Texans do we have in here? All right. That backfired last week when I was in Calgary. Not one damn Texan in the whole room. Then I had to pity the entire audience. Little fun fact for you guys. At any given time, about 1/3 of all SEALs are from where? You are damn right. I know you come from very data-driven organizations. Please do not go fact-check that data. I'm pretty sure it's accurate, though. I want to believe it so wholeheartedly. So I grew up in Dallas. I was a swimmer in high school, played rugby in college, where I attended Southern Methodist University, earning degrees in finance and economics. And upon graduation, of course, I took a job as a financial analyst with a large investment firm. And during that time, I started training with one of my college buddies who was a year behind me. And he was, in fact, one of these guys who had a vision of graduating and joining the Navy in an attempt to making into this notorious Navy SEAL training program. Of course, I thought that was highly unrealistic. So I trained with him to stay fit and help him prepare for his rough journey. And after a year of working as an analyst, I eventually quit my job. And he and I then moved to Crested Butte, Colorado, where we trained together for an additional 6 months for 5 hours a day at 10,000 feet altitude to get into the best physical condition that we could. Then in early 2000, we joined the Navy, and after a couple months of basic training, I was on a plane headed out to sunny San Diego, California, where I'd begin my journey. And I can tell you with exact certainty and clarity, like it was yesterday, that I have never been more nervous in my entire life than the day I stepped foot into the lobby of the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. Because it is a very scary and depressing thing, my friends, knowing for a fact It's actually not that funny. Knowing for a fact that your life is going to be pure hell for many months to come. But of course, at this point, there was no turning back. I had to be all in. And I'll tell you another interesting fact. It takes 18 months and costs millions of dollars to train and create one SEAL. And that doesn't count the millions of dollars and years of arduous training once you actually make it to a team. That 18 months is actually broken into various segments. The first segment is 6 months long and called BUDS, another one of our acronyms. It stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL. If any of you have seen the SEAL movie Lone Survivor, unfortunately based on a true story, the opening scenes are actually from a Discovery Channel documentary about BUDS Class 234. We run classes every 2 months, 6 times a year. I followed them in Class 235, and I was present for all this filming. This will give you guys just a teeny tiny taste of what BUDS is all about. Let's take a look.
6 times 3. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Hurry up. 18. Oh!
Ring the bell 3 times, put your helmet on the ground, you're done.
You don't make it, you do it again! Have you ever tested this hard ever in your life? Never. Winning here is a conscious decision. Make up your mind whether you want to pass or choose to fail.
All right, now, gentlemen, I'm going to introduce y'all to something called not being able to breathe.
Andrew, come back. Come back to the light. Take all this shaking and all this cold, harness it, turn it into aggression. You just prove to your bodies, through your mind, that you can push yourself further than you thought possible. Get wet! Run! I met my limit, so that's it. You sure you want to be here? Yes, I do. Are you absolutely sure? I'm positive! Whatever you have to do, just find an excuse to win. Keep going. It pays to be a winner. I like having my buddies that I can depend on, and I would like for them to be able to depend on me. You guys are our band of brothers.
Doesn't that look fun? Does anybody feel like they missed their calling in life? No? I do mentor young men into this program, so if you have children, I would like to speak to them after this. People are shaking their heads. Patty, go take some pictures. Pictures. We talked about this. Okay, all right. You can finish your lunch later. Okay. So no, nobody feels like they missed their calling in life? Now the funny thing is what you just saw was a depiction of only the first 3 weeks of BUDS. BUDS has a 90% failure rate of highly capable candidates. So imagine those types of activities going on for months and months at a time, and then the irony is the training just becomes more difficult after that. Now to set the tone for how high performance teams and great leaders really start to embody that winning mindset, that visionary mindset for winning and achieving goals. I wanted to focus on some of the things you heard the instructors saying in those video clips, where he was talking to the students saying, winning here is a conscious decision. You will make up your mind whether you want to pass or you will choose to fail. Keep moving no matter what. Find an excuse to win. You can push yourself further than your mind or body ever thought possible. And while BUDS is, of course, largely physical in nature, it's really more so about mental transformation, just like leadership. Embodying the appropriate mindset that aligns perfectly with achieving a clear and concise goal. Fulfilling a vision, in this case, becoming a SEAL. But then working backwards from that lofty goal to find your own path to success. Because if you focused all at once on all the horrific evolutions you have before you from the day you begin to the day you end, the stress would consume you, you would lose your mind, and you would most likely fail. The same thing applies, of course, in our own personal and professional goal-setting mechanisms, the goals we have set for our teams and our organizations. As you guys know, we can set all the long-term, lofty, audacious goals that we want, our 3 to 5 year vision for our organization, our vision for transformation or navigating change, our 2018 strategic objectives, the quarterly goals and milestones and KPIs that will get us there. But those loftier goals don't mean a thing, of course, without a series of near-term, strategic, achievable goals and milestones set along the path to the fulfillment of that ultimate vision. And then we celebrate those quick wins as we go, which keeps ourselves and our team energized and focused on mission success. SEALs can only be forged in adversity. So the third week of BUDS, the third week of this 18-month training pipeline is called Hell Week, which is in fact worse than it sounds. That actually sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? It, of course, designed to do one thing, simply weed out those not committed to the mission of becoming a SEAL. You do not sleep for an entire week. You run the equivalent of multiple marathons while wet and sandy, inside and out. The instructors make a concerted effort to ensure you get the sand on the inside of your clothing so that it strips the flesh off your body as you run. And it does. You swim dozens of miles in the open frigid ocean. You run with heavy logs, heavy boats, heavy backpacks. You run the obstacle course multiple times a day, endless calisthenics, brutal beatings. All while battling severe bruising, cuts, lacerations, stress fractures, broken bones, joint problems. The most severe chafing people that you could ever imagine in all of the areas you would never, ever want to be severely chafed. Calling it chafing is not even accurate. You have no skin left between your legs, around your waist, under your arms, and on top of your head. And then imagine all the extra time you spend in the salt water. Really kicks it up a notch. Oh, and wait, I'm not done. And pretty much constant second stage hypothermia. One of the ways I give back to the community is to mentor young men into and through the program. And one of my most recent mentees, he's a new operator at SEAL Team 3, currently deployed. My wife and I had extended an invitation to him and some of his classmates to come on over to the house after Hell Week to recover. The fine people they are at the Special Warfare Training Center, they give you Saturday and Sunday to recover from these horrible injuries, and then you just hit it hard again on Monday. That's why Monday sucks at BUDS. My wife and I said, come on over to the house, and I told him, I was like, look, I don't want to hear from you before Friday, though, young man, because that would mean what? That would mean he quit, and that reflects poorly on me. And this really is all about me anyways. I said, I don't want to hear from you before Friday. So Sunday night goes by, Monday goes by, Tuesday goes by, Wednesday passes, I'm elated. Nobody quits after Wednesday. Why? Because by Wednesday, you're hallucinating so violently, people, that you could not even properly articulate it to the instructors if you wanted to quit. You were just a wandering, drooling blob at this point. 90% of the class quits between Sunday night and Tuesday morning. So I said, come on over to the house. Doorbell rings, and I open the door, and 6 of the most disgusting, swollen, pussy, scab-covered individuals I have ever seen are standing on our doorstep. I had obviously forgotten how awful you look after Hell Week. My wife pulls me aside. She's like, honey, we talked about this. Weren't you gonna put some, plastic over the furniture or something and hide the children, hide the pets while you're at it? This is disgusting. We kept our distance. We said, hey guys, come on in, just go in the living room over there. Quarantined them, let them sort of fester in their own filth and misery. And the next day I was talking to my buddy, and he said, you know, it's interesting, and you guys will appreciate this story. We live in an age of advancing technology. He said, you know, it's interesting, they now have this pill that you swallow every day, but it's actually a small medical device. And as it passes through your digestive tract, it emits your core body temperature. And the medics and corpsmen that follow you around relentlessly have a handheld device. You can just do a quick scan of your forehead or your chest to get an accurate reading of your core temperature. I was like, wow, that's fantastic. We're leveraging new medical technology to increase the safety standards. And he started laughing, and I said, why are you laughing? What's so funny about that? He said, yeah, Brent, safety standards, sure. No, they're actually leveraging this new technology so they can more frequently and accurately test our core temperature to ensure they keep us hypothermic the entire week. If you people take nothing else away from this presentation, it is to remember that sometimes technological advancements are not our friend. This is a picture, intentionally grainy, of my graduating class to preserve people's identities, but let's do the math really quick. About 1,000 highly capable candidates applied for our class. Of that 1,000, only 250 were selected to begin training, but ultimately only 23 graduated, earning the right to wear the SEAL Trident pin. Now, the interesting thing about this pin is that it's the only emblem in the United States military where the eagle's head is actually fully bowed in memory of those that forged the path ahead of us. Another line from the SEAL Ethos says, my trident is a symbol of honor and heritage, bestowed upon me by the heroes that have gone before. It embodies the trust of those that I am bound to defend. It is a privilege I must earn every day. Your roles in your organization, regardless of rank, title, position, tenure, roles as leaders, managers, is a privilege we all have to earn every single day, simply by asking ourselves, what will I do today to be the best, most valuable, and effective member of this organization that I can be? Or as we say in the SEAL teams, how will I earn my trident today? Now, after several combat tours, I left the SEAL teams, went to graduate school, and started my first company. And when re-entering the civilian workforce, I quickly realized that many of these principles that we learn in SEAL training, the principles that forge SEAL culture, those principles of leadership at all levels, teamwork, persistence, adaptability, transparency and communication and collaboration, accountability, trust. These principles, of course, can be highly leveraged to build high-performance, award-winning organizations in the civilian world. I've been very blessed to have been able to build some great organizations, great companies, but I've also made a hell of a lot of mistakes, costly mistakes, and therefore learned a lot throughout this journey when it comes to leadership and management, team engagement and collaboration. I wanted to share some of that with you today. So earlier I mentioned we'd be talking a bit about how high-performance organizations out here in the civilian world can leverage the principles of leadership at all levels, aligning culture with strategy, accountability and trust to achieve winning results. So what does it mean to be part of a high-performance organization, and what does that look like from the inside out? Well, first and foremost, high-performance organizations of any type, in any industry, are made up of sound leaders at all levels, from the top to the bottom, leaders that understand how to leverage the positive elements of the organizational culture to drive change, that communicate a powerful and aligned vision to the rest of the organization and emotionally connect people behind that mission narrative. We are ethical always, both on and off the battlefield. We prioritize team engagement, and we're going to talk a lot about the importance of team and employee engagement and its economic impact on an organization. Great leaders also inspire others to lead. Leadership in today's organizations is not just about leadership at the senior levels or pampering those that follow us, that report to us, but really inspiring others to take on authentic leadership responsibilities and giving them the actual training and tools to be successful. We show resiliency in the face of adversity and are all aligned consistently behind that mission narrative, and that starts at the top of any organization. Similarly, all organizations, high-performance teams are comprised of team members across the entire organization that have a clear and concise understanding of the mission and vision of the organization and what it's trying to accomplish, its purpose, and they believe in it. They collaborate across barriers, and we're going to talk more about collaboration today. They actively create cross-functional teams and are allowed to do so and collaborate across the horizontal and vertical silos that exist in most organizations. They hold themselves to the highest level of accountability, and they hold their peers to the highest level of accountability. High-performance team members in any organization have a deep respect for one another and therefore can then engage in what I refer to as respectful conflict to solve problems and develop solutions. They participate at the highest levels. They are always all in. They have a shared sense of purpose and an unwavering trust and loyalty towards one another. And we're also going to talk more about the impact of trust on engagement and productivity in any organization in a little bit. So from a leadership and management standpoint, basically anybody in this room and everybody in your organization, in theory, should always expect to both lead and to be led. Great leadership and management in today's successful 21st century organizations must exist at all levels, from the top to the bottom and across the organization. It can no longer rest solely on the shoulders of the senior leaders or just the managers in the middle, but rather it's really about creating nimble and collaborative teams, leveraging the innate ability of every single member of your team and your organization, even to be encouraged to take on roles and responsibilities, sometimes even outside of our own job descriptions, in order to help the organization fulfill its mission and vision and its strategic objectives. So therefore being collaborative, being communicative, bringing actual solutions to the table, and never, ever, ever being satisfied with the status quo. Always constantly challenging in a productive way, of course, the existing structures, systems, processes, even the culture and the team, but more importantly, always challenging ourselves to be better. But again, in today's more volatile and uncertain business landscape, the leadership and management needs of most organizations has evolved and is continuing to evolve in this more fast-paced information age. Organizations that are getting it right and are thriving in the 21st century are disseminating leadership responsibilities down the chain of command to the frontline troops, just like we do in the SEAL teams. They're replacing old structures, old hierarchies with networks and ecosystems of truly engaged and empowered team members at all levels. And doing so creates a much more nimble and adaptive team environment. But those new environments lend way to better collaboration, better communication, and better team and employee engagement, which of course translates very well to improved speed, efficiency, retention, and also the financial health of an organization. So let's take a look at what great leadership and management looks like in today's modern 21st century organizations that are getting it right. Well, to do that, we kind of have to distill the unique differences between the discipline of leadership and the discipline of management. They're two uniquely different things. In large part, leadership, of course, as you know, is about clearly defining and communicating the vision of the organization and aligning people emotionally behind that mission narrative, connecting them to that cause and that purpose, defining that vision and purpose early, often, and always throughout the life cycle of the organization. And equally as important is management's role in the duties and tasks and projects associated with fulfilling that vision. Could be anything: budgeting, staffing, resourcing, improving systems, process, talent acquisition programs, whatever it is. But when truly visionary leadership can align perfectly with diligent management, and all are aligned in the organization behind that concise mission narrative, that's of course when execution starts to happen and the fulfillment of the vision really starts coming to fruition. Now we think about leadership in a military context, you might have an idea of a very top-down, command and control, very siloed both vertically and horizontally, traditional military organizational structure. And while that's pretty much traditionally the case for our conventional forces, it is not so in the special operations community. And we've made a diligent effort in our post-9/11 reality to create what we call a decentralized command model, where we're decentralizing decision-making and leadership mechanisms. We're replacing those hierarchies, like I said, with networks of truly empowered teams so that we can make better decisions with better data at a much faster pace. Great leadership these days is also about, from a managerial perspective, prioritizing employee engagement and empowerment. We throw these words around with abandon quite often, but sometimes in our teams, and I made this mistake myself, it's not truly authentic. It's not actually existing because we're saying we want to engage the team, we want to prioritize engagement and empowerment and give meaningful work, but then we don't give meaningful work, or we empower them with work that doesn't matter at all, but then let them run with the ball, equally as detrimental to a team. But truly empowering and engaging a team, and I'll talk a little bit more specific about this in a minute, is also about having to break down some of those structural and behavioral barriers that stand in the way of a truly empowered team. Great leadership is also about understanding the difference between planning and preparation. As SEALs, we are always the most well-prepared warfighters on the battlefield every single time. But we also know, this is one of my favorite quotes, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And I assure you it is true. Plan goes to hell every time you get on target. Any high-performance, nimble, collaborative organization has the tools, skills, resources, and mindset to be nimble enough to be able to adapt to the inevitable obstacles they're going to face day in and day out. Great leadership is also values-based leadership. In theory, the core values of any team or organization should drive every decision, every strategy, every strategic partnership, basically every move they make, both in and outside of the office, both on and off the battlefield. And as leaders and managers, one of the many burdens of command is that we have to live those values. We have to believe in them wholeheartedly and live them every single day on and off the battlefield for them to be authentic and embraced by our teams. Ultimately, it's also about having extreme ownership over our roles and responsibilities for achieving mission success. Simply put, that's about striving for 100% accountability in your organization from the top down and the bottom up. As SEALs, one of our many sayings is we train for war and we fight to win. For us, failure to execute is not an option. We will literally die on that battlefield before we ever consider quitting. And I realize that might sound a little overly macho or quite silly or unrealistic, but it really is part of our culture. It's part of our mindset and how we build winning teams that are greater than the sum of their parts. In the 2017 Deloitte Human Capital Trends Report, managers and executives from all types of organizations from all over the world that were surveyed cited the areas of culture, retention, and engagement as urgent, meaning areas in their organizations and their teams that needed immediate attention. Of course, due to many reasons, globalization, emerging technologies, sometimes the seemingly endless array of job opportunities for today's workforce, even what I refer to as organizational transparency due to websites like Glassdoor.com or Indeed or even social sites like LinkedIn. One thing that's important for all of us to understand, especially as our teams continue to evolve and grow and people come and go and we implement new talent acquisition programs, the power is now more so in the hands of the job seeker than it is the employer, due to many of these reasons. And today's workforce, as many of you probably know, cares deeply about the culture, the vision, the purpose, the work environment of the organizations they seek to join. And they should. But let's face it, unemployment's only at 4.4%, yet according to Global Gallup research, employee disengagement is at a whopping 67%. 67% of the workforce is disengaged in their job functions. Only 15% can be defined as engaged, meaning we're emotionally connected to our work. We know exactly how that work matters to driving mission success, to helping our peers, helping the organization thrive. It's one of the things I always joke about, but I'm kind of being serious, is the SEAL Teams is the only organization in the world that has 100% employee engagement. All are emotionally connected behind our mission narrative to purge the world of evil. That leaves, of course, 18% who are actively disengaged. Those are we've all experienced some of those toxic people in our organizations that are working against the organization and the team. And of course, those people need to be found another place, another opportunity to work. But the organizations that rank the highest, coming back to culture and the importance of culture management, do so in large part as based on anonymous surveys on sites like Glassdoor, because they do a phenomenal job of defining and managing their organizational culture, aligning that culture with their strategic vision, and prioritizing the engagement of everybody on their team. Another fundamental reason that culture management and prioritizing employee engagement is more important than it ever has before is because the strengths of your organizational culture and the prioritization of engaging as many people as possible in your organization's mission and vision are the most powerful tools and weapons for leading through change, for navigating organizational transformation, whether those changes and transformations are driven internally in your organization by external factors of things going on in your space or industry. I think we can all agree that we're all experiencing more change now in our organizations than ever before. This affects not just your organizations, but almost every industry across the globe, which means managers and leaders and any organization really need to learn how to master the art and science of culture management and employee engagement just to survive and thrive in this fast-paced 21st century business landscape. So in my new book, I get into this, but if you think about it from a military context, when we think about change and transformation, the special operations community essentially entered these conflicts as a very top-down, command and control, hierarchical 20th century organization. And we quickly realized that to move at the speed these wars required, we really had to start rethinking, if not even then redesigning, our structures, our process, our organizational approach, and therefore our culture and our mindset from a leadership perspective in order to exist in our new reality, to fight and defeat a very dangerous and decentralized enemy. So we too had to become more nimble, more adaptive, more collaborative, and more decentralized. In the book you guys have on the table, which is, again, nobody else has this book, by the way, so give yourselves a round of applause for that. Whether you like the book or not, I'm just saying. There's a lot of embarrassing stories about me in there, so you'll get to those later. Anybody ever fallen into a cesspool 2 minutes into a combat mission? This guy. The mission ended up taking 24 hours, not 2 hours too, by the way. Pretty gross, yeah. I digress. I'm still thinking about myself being covered in human waste for 24 hours. Yeah, let's just say I didn't need to use any bullets there. The smell just scared all the bad guys away. But in the book, I dive deep into the tools and strategies that organizations can use to better navigate the murky waters of organizational change and transformation. And the book's broken into 3 parts. The first part is about building a change culture. And essentially that's, from a leadership and management standpoint, about really taking a deep dive audit of your organizational culture, understanding its strengths that can be used and leveraged as prime movers for leading through change. Sometimes the weaknesses that will stand in the way of growth and change and collaboration, those weaknesses that need to be mitigated and removed. But the 2 most important cultural foundational pillars I talk about are the importance of understanding the existing levels of trust and accountability in the organization and its impact on productivity and engagement, and oftentimes too the financial health of the organization. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The next part is about preparing for the change battle. Essentially, this starts oftentimes, just like I mentioned before in Bud's training and from a leadership perspective, sometimes it starts with the leadership and management mindset transformation, because it's not just about having the appropriate mindset for the reality of the world that surrounds us today, but ensuring that we have the right mindset that will help drive us and our team to the fulfillment of that other lofty vision and goal, and to navigate the changes and obstacles that we'll face on that path. Then, of course, the mission, the vision. One of the most important parts of navigating change in an organization is to involve as many people, to engage as many people as possible in that mission planning process, just like we do in the SEAL teams. When you do that, you're accomplishing 2 things simultaneously. You're gathering valuable ground intelligence, as we call it, from your frontline troops, sometimes data and information that gets trapped in those vertical silos, information critical for making informed decisions. But you're also, and even more importantly, you're gaining buy-in from your team, your organization, because they have a say in what that planning process is and what the outcome can be. Then you can celebrate those quick wins together and navigate some of the obstacles together because everybody's had a voice in what that plan is supposed to be. Then once you have that clearly defined vision, communicating it early, often, and always throughout that process. And of course, the third part is winning the change fight, the fulfillment of that long-term vision for your organization. Unfortunately, according to last year's McKinsey & Company data, about 70% of organizational transformation efforts fail or fall short of meeting their objectives, in large part due to failures in some of these initial areas, those foundational pieces of culture and strategy. We have a saying in the SEAL teams, don't run to your death. When you're on an enemy target, you take it slow, assess risk, and use speed and aggression as needed. But many organizations will skip a lot of these early stage foundational steps and run off to their death thinking they're making a lot of changes positively in their organization, but they're starting on step 6 when they didn't start on step 1. But again, many organizations will gain significant momentum, sometimes to fall short of meeting their objectives due to waning buy-in and participation from the team, sometimes even from the early adopters, those people who initially bought in, but oftentimes dealing with change takes a lot longer. and has more significant hard and soft costs than we anticipate as managers and leaders. And therefore, oftentimes our teams or even ourselves retract back into our bunker and adopt that wait and see mentality. Let's just kind of see how this goes, and hopefully somebody else will pick up the ball and run with it. We start experiencing what I refer to as change battle fatigue. Sometimes, and I know this from my own failures as a leader, it's a lack of discipline. We allow those competing priorities to distract us from the fulfillment of that vision, for dealing with those changes that need to be faced immediately today. And therefore, oftentimes too, it's the lack of ability or focus to create a truly resilient team or organization. Because again, it's not about only reactively dealing with the changes our organizations face today, but building truly resilient teams that can bounce back from adversity and have the strength, the foresight, the mindset, and the skill set to deal with the changes we'll all face tomorrow. Let these pictures sink in for a minute. Studies actually show that interacting with animals can actually improve human social interaction in the areas of trust and empathy. So I thought these pictures were appropriate. And yes, that is a dog attached to my body as I jump out of the back of that plane. You know what he's thinking right now? Man's best friend, my ass. Not a happy camper. They never do get used to it either. I don't know what it is about plummeting 130 miles towards the face of the earth, but they do not like it. We put little blacked out goggles on them thinking that's gonna solve the problem. Really? Who came up with that idea, by the way? I didn't tell you this story earlier, but when my class was in Hell Week, again, Hell Week starts on a Sunday, ends on a Friday afternoon, and the class will report to one of the main classrooms on that Sunday morning. And the beauty of that day is the students have no idea when Hell Week will commence, when breakout will start. The anguish and stress is literally eating away at your soul all day long. You know it's going to be the worst week of your life, yet you just want it to start so badly. And so our class leader, the class leader is always going to be the highest ranking officer in your class, to motivate us. One of the things he did was to read us the St. Crispin's Day speech from William Shakespeare's Henry V. And one of the great excerpts from that speech says, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother." John died 4 days later. We were 5 days into Hell Week. It was Thursday night, about 11 p.m. We were in full gear, no fins, doing relay races in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And one of the evolutions we were doing was called a caterpillar race. It's not quite as cute as it sounds. Your boat crew of 7 guys is in the water, on your backs in a line, swimming backwards like this. Except I would have my legs wrapped around the waist of the guy in front of me. His legs are wrapped around the waist of the guy in front of him, and so on and so forth. Now, even fresh, this is a very difficult evolution to execute properly, not only to keep your head above water, but also to beat the other boat crew to the other side of the pool. Everything in Hell Week is a race. 5 days into Hell Week, it is almost impossible. It's more so exercise in controlled drowning. So, long story short, John had a massive heart failure and drowned in the pool right next to us. But again, we were hallucinating so violently that we did not even realize what was going on at the time. So about 2 hours later, they had us waiting in the classroom, not sure what was going on, and all of a sudden the instructors walk in. The commanding officer, Buds at the time, walks in with them, which we thought was strange. He walks to the front of the classroom, turns around, wastes no time, and addresses the class. And he started out by saying, "Gentlemen, Lieutenant John Scott was pronounced dead at 1 a.m. Lieutenant Parado, you're taking over." And he said it with that level of candor, I believe, purposefully. He paused for a minute to let that sink in, then he broke that silence by saying, "Gentlemen, get used to this feeling that you have right now. This is what it's going to be like in the teams. And you will lose teammates. You have to learn to control your emotions, stay focused on your mission objectives, and trust each other as a team no matter what happens, especially amidst adversity. In this case, the loss of a team member." And of course, the time that has passed, the emotion of the moment has made me forget his exact words, but I remember him focusing on the concept of team trust. And it was a bit of odd foreshadowing because literally 3 months later was 9/11. And that's when we all knew we'd be going to war, where trust would be at a premium. So if I ask you guys to reflect on the importance of trust in your own organizations, what is trust? Like accountability and discipline, are these nice to have social variables, less relevant to the organization, softer side cultural management strategies? Or do they have an impact on the productivity of any organization, and sometimes even the financial health and strength of an organization. Human Capital Institute performed a study called Building Trust 2013, Workforce Trends Driving High Performance. And a key data point that came out of that was employees working in what they define as high-performance organizations, and this study was more so organizations that were continuing to grow steadily and generate positive financial returns. Those employees believe their leaders, managers, and their peers to be highly trustworthy people. People who walk the walk, talk the talk, words match actions consistently day in and day out, promises are kept. They live the values of the organization on and off the battlefield. And the two areas that trust internally affects most in an organization are productivity and engagement. Since we already established that engagement is maybe a bit of a problem, but also a great opportunity for organizations to take on, one might theorize that trust in an organization, and many organizations sometimes, is either not valued, or more typically, what I've seen is just not simply managed and measured properly. And according to more Gallup research in the United States, employee disengagement, due oftentimes to low levels of trust and accountability in an organization, costs the organization upwards of costs the United States upwards of $550 billion a year in lost productivity. So I think we can conclude that culture and leadership and the fundamental pillars of accountability and trust and collaboration are not soft-side management strategies and nice-to-have social variables, but they drive the productivity and health of any team and any organization. Now in closing, if we could just take the sound down a little bit, I'm going to talk over that. I forgot to mention that to you earlier. In closing, I would like to share a brief poem with you guys. There's another SEAL movie called Act of Valor. It's not based on a true story, but in this movie, the platoon commander, before going downrange to go off to war, he writes his baby son a letter. It's one of those letters that's only to be opened and read in the instance that he does not return home. This poem is part of that letter, is a bit of advice for his baby son's life. Later on in the movie, they're in a horrific gunfight. A grenade is thrown into the room they're clearing. Now, without hesitation, that platoon commander jumps on that grenade, sacrificing himself for his team. I have a SEAL brother who did the exact same thing. Medal of Honor recipient Michael Mansour. His sniper element was on the second floor of a building in Ramadi, Iraq, when all of a sudden a grenade came in through the window, thrown by an enemy fighter from outside. It literally hit him right in the chest and bounced onto the floor. Of course, he had teammates over on his left, he had teammates on his right. He also had a big empty stairwell right behind him. He is literally the only person in that room who could have saved his own life. Instead, he instinctively jumped forward, sacrificing himself for his team. The poem is called Death Song. So live your life so that the fear of death may never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion, respect others in their views, and demand that they respect yours. Love your life. Perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and of service to your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day you go over the great divide. Show respect to all people, but grovel to none. When you rise in the morning, give thanks for the light, for your life and strength. And if you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies within yourself. And when your time comes to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death. So they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. Now, even though this poem is titled Death Song, if you listen to those words, it's not about death, is it? It's about life. Living our lives to the fullest extent, creating and seizing every opportunity we have to be better. Not just better for ourselves, better for our teams, the organizations we're a part of, bettering the lives of those around us, and hopefully making this world a little bit better place than we found it. So ladies and gentlemen, as you step forth together with your teams onto your battlefields, setting and achieving lofty goals, pursuing excellence and innovation in everything you do, In achieving maximum performance, remember these 3 things. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Push yourself outside your comfort zone every chance you get, because the more you do, the wider that area becomes. And next, as we say in the SEAL teams, and we have a hell of a lot of sayings, the only easy day was yesterday. There are no easy days for individuals and high-performance teams pursuing an existence of excellence. Life is full of obstacles. We simply face those obstacles together with our teams, controlling what we can and ignoring what we can't. And lastly, my friends, I ask that you be all in all the time. Ask yourself every day, at what level am I willing to participate on this team and in this life? And no matter what challenges life throws your way, whether they be at work, with your teams, your organization, your family, spouse, kids, even things like divorce or illness, finances, no matter what it is, not if, but when you get knocked down, get back up every time and never, ever be out of the fight. God bless you guys. You've been amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.